Just give everyone a minute to get in. Just check that everyone's getting in.
Just gonna make sure my phone is on.
Okay, looking good.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Okay, so let's kick off. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. My name is Shannon Gannam, and I'm the Global Education Director at Magnum Photos, normally based in London, but currently at the beach in the English seaside. I hope you're all well wherever you may be joining us from. It's a huge pleasure to be able to welcome you to our first Magnum Learn Open Day, where we hope to be able to share as much as we can about Magnum's educational programming and answer any questions that you might have about your own educational needs. We have a special focus for today's event on our first long-term mentorship program with Magnum photographers Alessandra Sanguinetti and Gregory Halpern, which was designed in collaboration with Amber Terranova, who is Magnum's Education Director of the Americas. So hello guys, how are you?
Hello.
Welcome, thank you for your time.
Welcome, thanks for coming today.
Yep. So before I hand over to Amber to kick off the conversation with Alessandra and Gregory, just a bit of housekeeping about our event today. So please use the Q&A box to start asking any questions that you might have. And also, please use the Q&A as a way to let us know any feedback on programs or subject matter that you might like to see from us. Just to note that this session is being recorded, but your questions will not be shown as part of that. And then a quick overview of the running order for today. So Amber will introduce the long-term mentorship program and lead a discussion with Alessandra and Gregory until about 12:40 Eastern Standard Time. And then we will throw in a few questions from you. So please get those into the Q&A box. And then we'll leave a bit more time for some questions, bringing us up to 1 o'clock. And then we will let Alessandra and Gregory go and thank them for their time. And then we will take you through some of the other programming, help you kind of navigate our website and find what you're looking for. And then we'll also be joined by Sonia Junet, who's the education manager at Magnum Photos based in London. She's actually just wrapping up another workshop at the moment, and then she will join us. And we also have Bariam, who is the Learn coordinator. Hello, Bai, joining us as well. And then we'll have some more questions at the end. So unless, Amber, I've missed anything on housekeeping, we can
cover it. Yeah, thanks,
okay.
Shannon.
Thank you.
Great. So I'm really excited to talk about the long-term mentorship program today, and I'll go over a few nuts and bolts about the mentorship before Greg and Alessandra will talk about some different projects they are working on or their teaching philosophy. So the long-term mentorship will start in January, and it goes over the course of 7 months. The price of the mentorship is $8,500 per person, and it will be based on an application process. The entire workshop consists of 10 to 12 full days of workshops in total, 4 individual meetings with Alessandra and Greg, 5 guest speakers, and a pitching panel at the end of the mentorship. The pitching panel will be an opportunity for all of the mentees to pitch their final body of work to a panel of experts from the book publishing world, the curatorial world. We really want to tailor the mentorship to all of the mentees' individual needs. So we're very open to letting things develop according to what your interests are and the direction of your work. Let's see. There's lots to say about it. I think it might be a good idea to jump into hearing from Greg and Alessandra, and then we can take more questions after that.
Great. Which, am I starting or Alessandra? I can't remember.
I can start.
Okay.
So, I think the main thing about this workshop is to really have a long-term dialogue with us and with your fellow students, and to talk about your projects, to help you along with them, to do studio critiques, to do just an organic thing where we're creating some kind of community between all of us and just talking about poetry, about work, about literature, about photography, about movies, about just everything that makes life exciting, at least for me. And just to me, to start a project is one of the most exciting things, and it's the center of my life. And I know that having kind of like kindred spirits to share it with, and some kind of guidance has been crucial in my life in whatever form it takes. I was lucky enough to have partners or friends who were also artists, so they became my mentors. And I didn't feel alone while I was doing the work, because it's really easy to feel alone while you're doing it. So what I was really going to show you is a lot of all the things I'm working on right now and for the last months. Just like a lot of people during the pandemic, I've been looking through my archive, and just reassessing all my past work and taking up projects that I had left on the wayside. But so behind me, I have the way I organize it, which is I just have boxes like this, scrapbook boxes, like Black River, The Adventures Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. So like right now I'm concentrating on Black River Falls, which is a project that I'm doing in Wisconsin. And it's based off of Wisconsin Death Trip that I read when I was very little, and it's always stayed with me. So I've been doing work there. I just went to Black River Falls and basically pretended that I was a town photographer. But I'm still trying to shape it. I'm still finding kind of the structure, the rhythm of it, and I'm going through all the work to see, what's missing. Because that's really important. You start a project, and I think, at least in my case, it's just really good not to overthink it in the beginning, just to flow with it, flow. And then you have to like kind of stop and assess everything you have, edit, think about it, read, and think about, that's when you really have to like make decisions. So where is this what direction do I want to take it in? So that's the point I'm in right now. I'm kind of towards the end, but I still have to fill in holes. So this is a box. I'm reading this because I realized that this is one thing I want to do going back, to photograph all the Indian mounds in Wisconsin. Then I have lists of everything I need to do, and a notebook that the same notebook I've always taken there with everybody at photographs, phone number, name, address, email, and and just prints that I'm putting up on the wall to start finding relationships between the images and seeing, where I'm repeating myself, etc. And what else? Yeah, so I'm kind of at the phase that maybe many of you are in your own work. So would like to take a workshop too. And then I'm working on the re-edition of the first book of the adventures. So here I'm just testing out, you know, what color I want the cover to be and all that. And I'm just putting it up there so I can live with it for a while and make sure that it's the right choice. What else? No, and then there's this folder, which is Papa, Dr. Alchek, which is work on my grandfather that I started when I was 16 or so. I always photographed him and I filmed him. He was a doctor in Brooklyn that had a million stories. He was very loved. And I always wanted to put all this work together. So that's also what I'm working on now while I can't travel and do stuff. So I have letters that he wrote, portraits I took of him. I have a ton of video I did of him with his patients. So I have to digitalize it and transcribe things. So I'm just like doing all these different things. Sometimes I can get overwhelmed and I don't know which one I want to work on what day. But, you know, that's just that's life. Yeah. So the idea would be to work with your stuff, you know, all the projects or project you have and just the workshop would be structured, but the idea is for it to be loose enough so we can adapt and adjust to all of your needs. You know, what else? You know, it would be good to later you have questions for us about it. You know, yeah, that's my little thing.
Thanks, Alessandra.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Alessandra pointed out that it will be structured, but we hope that there will be room for it to be loose, and there will be community building aspects to the mentorship. Like we could have a Google Doc where all of the mentees have places for inspiration, suggestions on movies to watch, books to read, and there will be required reading as well. And in between the individual mentoring sessions between you and Greg and Alessandra, we will have 2 group meetups. And that will be a chance to discuss any other ideas that are coming up along the way during the mentorship as we get closer to the final session in July. All right. Greg, would you like to share some thoughts?
Sure, yeah. I was laughing, Alessandra, when you said that you wanted to take a workshop, because I feel like and maybe we have a similar process, but like I'm starting a project now too, that will be a book of pictures around Buffalo, New York, where I grew up, and Rochester, New York, where I currently live. They're about an hour away. And it does feel like starting all over again in this way, you know, even though, you know, maybe from the outside, it seems like photographers like Alessandra or I, like you kind of like know what you're doing at a certain point. And in a way you do, you're more confident, but in a way, every time I start a new project, it feels like starting over again. And I'm filled with the same sort of questions and doubts. And I need the same kind of feedback that I think maybe you guys are interested in from a workshop where, like, you know, for example, Alessandra and I will show each other our work, and I'll show my wife, who's a photographer, my work. And there are just a few people who are still sort of like mentors to me, but they're really crucial for me in like the creative process, because I can't always see the work. You know, I just really, if I look at it too long, or I'm too invested in the experience of taking the picture, I can no longer see the image. So I really rely on the eyes of others. And then it's this mixture of like intuitive fumbling and playfulness, and then obsessive re-editing and resequencing. with a happy mistake that might happen with two pictures that wind up next to each other. And then there's like the input of outside people, like a few trusted people. You know, Michael Mack, who's going to be a guest in the workshop, is a crucial voice for me in a number of projects I've done, because he's just brought this perspective of a person who's made countless books and who can see it with sort of a colder eye, you know, like he can understand things about the work, like what it feels like to view the work for the first time, or that I can't. So so anyway, I think we'll probably talk about that. And I loved seeing and hearing about your creative process, Alessandra. And it got me thinking that, you know, if people are interested, whoever winds up in the workshop, you know, I think we're committed to kind of keeping it fluid, but it could be interesting if there's interest to sort of have us, Alessandra and I, talk about, you know, what we're working on, or share work in progress, or even get feedback from you guys at a certain point, just to sort of like, we want to be generous with you guys about sort of the process. So so it's not mysterious. So we sort of demystify the making process for those of you who end up taking the class. And one quick thing I would just show that I'm doing now that I feel like is relevant is I tend to edit with these little boxes of contact sheets. And somewhere along the way, I realized this was my process of like, so I cut up my contact sheets, which I tend to make in the dark room, and I write in the back the roll number, and then I shuffle them around like on a table, or I make little tiny shelves on the wall, or I play like card games with them. And I come up with little clusters or sequences, and sometimes I'll lay out like a whole book on the wall and take a picture of it and then take it down and reshuffle. And you know, I guess I wanted to share that because it feels like a really kind of like weirdly personal, idiosyncratic way of working, but it kind of feels like it's what works for me. And it allows this, it allows for playfulness, you know, and like, you know, sometimes I'll take a stack and literally I'll just dump them on a table because it's like my brain gets so like, what's the word, sort of calcified in like the way that the tendencies I have, like what types of images I put next to each other, like, oh, I need to put a portrait and a landscape next to each other, but maybe two portraits will wind up next to each other. And it gets me thinking about how those portraits relate, or, and, you know, often it's a terrible thing that winds up happening through chance, but sometimes it's like a brilliant thing that I wouldn't have thought of. So I guess, yeah, I guess it'd be nice for us to talk about that and maybe help you guys figure out what ways of like working could help you. You know, for me, I thought it was just an editing process and sort of a form of play, but I did this book called Omaha Sketchbook a couple years ago, and it kind of came out of that process where I cut up my contact sheets. And I remember I was, when I started this project like 15 years ago, I was, you know, like basically unemployed, you know, just out of school. And I was going to I went to the art store to get like acid-free white paper, because I wanted to put my contact sheets on white paper and try to make a book like that. And the paper was really expensive because it was acid-free. And so I didn't buy it. And then later on that month, I was shooting at an old school, and I found this faded construction paper in like a abandoned kind of closet. And I took the paper home. I stole it, and I made the book dummy out of that paper. And so and I started thinking about then, like, you know, for example, how does a picture of like a tough kid in juvenile detention center, how does that change when it's a pink background versus say a black background, and all the assumptions you make about masculinity and the colors you associate with different feelings. And so anyway, I guess that process of play and chance kind of then became part of my process, and then became part of the book itself. And I wanted to share that story. Yeah, I don't know. I could keep going about this. I don't know if we need to, how soon we need to move on to other stuff, but that was just one story I had about creativity. But maybe I'll just share one more thing about like my thinking with this class in general. I'm really excited about this class for a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons is that I I never particularly liked being in school as a student. Like it was never I kind of had like authority issues where I didn't like the structure. It was all too forced, and it didn't feel like there was room for me to just go do my thing. But at the same time, I knew I needed mentors. And so for me, this is like a perfect format where you have total freedom and time to work, but then you have a really intense personal relationship with mentors. And, hopefully there's a connection between your work and say mine or Alessandra's, or preferably both, because for me, like the way I always learned was I would seek out photographers whose work really moved me. And I would try to find a way to work with them, either enroll in their school or find some other kind of mentoring relationship. Because for me, like it was way better to have, say fewer meetings with someone whose work I just absolutely loved and admired than say to go to a school with say 10 teachers whose work didn't really speak to me, or whose work I felt like if it wasn't someone whose sort of footsteps I wanted to follow in terms of their creative path. And so I think this is a perfect potentially format of learning. And so I think that has real potential as a learning experience. And I still hear the words of many of my mentors, years and years and years later, even if it was a passing comment that at the time didn't even make sense, or that it didn't seem important. I still hear some of those sentences and some of those phrases, and it still guides me. Like even when I'm out shooting or editing, I still hear these things that really shape my process. And I feel like there's this myth of, like the creative genius who is like born brilliant and sort of is solitary, and I think there are maybe a few people like that in history, but I think most of us really need some form of community of people who we connect with and who we can sort of be part of a conversation with. And I know for me, that's absolutely true. Like I can literally see the influence of different mentors in specific images or certain comments that influenced certain things. And I'm just so grateful to have had those people come into my life. And so I'm excited about the possibility of being able to do that for others in this class. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, I guess, sort of my thoughts on where things are.
Thank you so much, Greg.
Sure, yeah.
So we have a lot of questions coming in, and let's see. I think what we can do is if everyone puts their question in the Q&A box, then I'm able to see it. Is that right, Shannon? Are we going through that? I noticed there's questions in two places.
Just as a reminder, if people can put them into the Q&A box, that would be great. And I'm really sorry, I seem to be having all kinds of internet disruption if I drop in and out, but I'm gonna leave you in Amber and Bai's hands. But I mean, I'm really curious why, why Gregory and Alessandra are excited to work together and what you think that might bring. And sorry if you've covered that when I dropped out at some point.
I love listening to Greg and talking to him, and I'm not, that's like one of the main attractions for me to doing this workshop, because every time we talk, I feel that I come away with something. And we are kind of in the same universe in terms of our artistic approach. I mean, our works are very different, but we have a like-minded, with enough differences to keep it interesting. And I had Greg once give a talk in a shorter workshop I was doing, and it was amazing because I love seeing how my peers work, their editing process, and little like anecdotes of how they're shooting, or how they solved strategies to solve shooting problems or editing or book. So I feel that I'm gonna learn from him, and honestly, and yeah, I think it'll be fun. I want to teach with somebody that I like to have conversations with.
That's kind and generous of you, but I feel that the feeling is totally mutual. Like when I think Amber, when you first reached out about doing this, I was like, honestly, I was like a little bit not sure about whether it was something I wanted to get involved in. And then when you suggested Alessandra, I was just like, yes, totally.
Right.
Because I mean, I've loved Alessandra's work for so long. And like I remember actually, I think it was Jim Goldberg who introduced us. And I remember that you had responded to an early book of mine, A, and that you had told Jim that you really loved the work. And I remember it meant the world to me because at that point, I was really still kind of like finding my way as a photographer. And the fact that you responded to the work, I remember it still, like, it encouraged me so much. And since then, I just feel like super grateful that we've become friends and colleagues. And I feel like we see really eye to eye about a lot of things and laugh a lot when we talk. And I just feel like we'll be able to provide, I think it'll be super fun. And I think we'll work really well together as a team. So yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about that. And like, I meant it when I said I was curious to hear more about like your creative process. Like, I think that would be great to hear. Like, if I'm curious, I feel like other people in the class would be curious.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I think I'll learn a lot too, just listening to you.
And when I was when I was in the middle of sequencing the last book, The Illusion of an Everlasting Summer, I was having a really hard time editing that book for various reasons. And last December, I was like, okay, I have to do this. I can't stall anymore. I have to sit down and do it. And I sent Greg my first sequence, and then I sent him the second. But when I sent him the first sequence, he just gave me some feedback by email, short feedback, but it was so important. Like, it made such a huge difference. Sometimes just like one paragraph from somebody, one idea from somebody can really change things. I also remember when I was starting out and I was doing On the Sixth Day, what became On the Sixth Day, but it wasn't that yet. I was still trying to find my way. I remember that an important curator from the States, I was in Argentina then, came to Argentina to look at portfolios. And I was so sure of my work, and like I was sure that she was just going to discover me and put me in, international museum shows, whatever. And she looked at it and said, you're a really good photographer. You have a really good eye, but where's the poetry? And I was like, I called her names privately for a very long time. And I was like, I was so mad, but, if I got so mad, it's because she made me think about it a little bit, and I worked for a long time just to prove her wrong. So even those, all interaction with people like that is, you never know where that crucial thing is going to come from. That makes you click and question what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been great to be in the planning meetings with the both of you, because I can tell that you both inspire and feed off of each other. There's this feeling that's very simpatico among the both of you. So
Totally.
yeah. All right. We have a lot of questions, some about the nuts and bolts of the mentorship structure, others about editing. So maybe while you're still here, before you both head out, we could answer some of these questions about the creative process.
I see some questions about like the nuts and bolts and costs and, virtual. Are you guys answering that, or should we address that?
We can cover that. I think your time is probably best spent on the creative, and we can run through quickly and answer all of those questions.
And just to make sure, because I see somebody asking if it's going to be in person, it's online.
Yeah, it's all online.
Maybe we didn't clarify that.
Yeah. which is great because then it allows us to invite external experts in who are located in different countries. So we're really going to take advantage of the fact that we can all connect online now and we don't have to jump on a plane to do this in person.
And, you know, I also just want to say, I know it's a nuts and bolts thing, but there's a question about the cost, and it is not, you know, I understand it's expensive cost, but there is, just so you know, there is a full ride scholarship option. And so don't, you know, leave the Q&A if you're concerned about that, because there is that possibility. I'm sure it'll be competitive, but it is available as an option, just so you guys know.
Yeah. And the cost does include a lot. It is a long-term commitment between you and the group. So it's not just a mentorship where you're working one-on-one. The idea is that you'll have this peer community to tap into, that you can all follow along in each other's process of making work. And we were discussing yesterday the opportunity to potentially create a blog where you'll be able to upload some works in progress and share your thoughts in real time with the group. All right, and we'll get more into those nuts and bolts. Let's see, I'm just looking for, I saw some questions about creative process here, and I just would like to address those.
I think the most important question is where can people find Gregory's hat?
Well, you're gonna have to take the workshop to get the answer.
Okay, good.
No, I don't know. It was a gift, isn't it? It's a pretty sweet hat, isn't it? I like hats.
Very sweet.
And there's one question about if you need to have a project already started. And the idea is to have, you know, that you're already immersed in something, or that you have been. I mean, you could be starting something new, as long as it's not, you have a clear idea of what you want and you have some experience. Because the idea is for you to be working long-term on one project while you're with us. That's the way that you're gonna get something out of it. And what I would like to make super clear is that the only way you will get something out of this workshop is going to be proportional to how much you put in. You know, there's only so much we can do. We can guide you, we can share our processes, and you'll get feedback from the other students, which is super valuable as well. And you're going to get to meet, you know, Alex Soth is going to be a guest, Christina de Middle, who's amazing, Michael Mack, and then there's going to be a surprise guest. And, you know, so but if you don't do your work, like if you're not like super passionate and ready to really work hard, you're not going to take advantage of it. It really depends on you, not on us. You know, you have to be passionate about what you do and work really hard in between classes.
Yeah, and make a lot of work. I mean, there's no substitute for just spending a lot of time just out making pictures. And then Alessandra and I are happy to look through contact sheets and edit, you know, tons and tons and tons of pictures. And that's, I think, a really helpful service we can provide throughout the workshop. But again, the more you make, the more you'll get out of it, 100%.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. There's a question from Alejandro Soto about how you edit for a long-term project. Which advice or experiences can you share?
Well, that's a long one. I mean, that's part of what the workshop will be about. Greg maybe has a better answer, but I don't have a 1-minute answer for that, you know.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, my short answer would be sometimes time helps. Like the time between when you made the picture and when you look at the picture helps me always see it more clearly. And, you know, I'll sometimes put a picture up, I'll think it'll look great for 5 minutes, and then you know, it has to last. Like sometimes if the picture's up on the wall a few days later and I'm still interested, it's a good sign. But if it's up on the wall for like weeks, or you know, preferably it's been in my archive for years and I've seen it over the years and I still am interested in it, that's one simple way of knowing. But sometimes it's a simple thing like showing it to a handful of people I trust. And if, say, Alessandra and Michael Mac agree, it's like, okay, that's a really good sign that it's worth keeping it. You know, so sometimes I can't always know on my own. So, but that's a quick answer. I think it's a really, really complicated thing. And I think, you know, as an artist in photography, you're really only as good as you are an editor. I mean, that's like as important. You know, first you need to make good pictures, but if you're not a great editor, you could ruin your work, and you just, so it's as important, definitely. And it's a real mysterious kind of art form, I think, the editing process, that we will totally get into in more depth.
Yeah, I can add, for example, again, with the second book of the adventures, that I was trying to sequence it. I had edited it maybe like 4 years ago. I already had all the frames. Then when I was sequencing it, I could never find it. It just never felt right. And after 5 years or more of living with the work, last December, I just said, okay, I'm just going to go through all the transparencies again, you know, just in case. And I ended up realizing that my edit had been terrible. That there were like the next frame from the one I had chosen before was just incredible, and it had completely passed me by, you know. And that has to do with what Greg said, with time. I need time. I need a lot of time between shooting and making the final edit. But that's not the case with a lot of people. You know, there's a lot of photographers I know who, yeah, there's one particular photographer in Magnum that he says he edits on his camera. He starts deleting the pictures that he knows won't work. To me, that's wild. I could never do that, you know. So it's very personal. The idea isn't, we're not going to tell you exactly how to do it, because there's no one way to do it. Huh?
Who is that?
I don't want to say, because I don't want to.
Okay. Yeah, no, I couldn't possibly do that either. Because it's, for me, they're totally separate, like, parts of my brain. Shooting is super intuitive, and like I try not to think too much. I try to just feel like the light and the whatever, the moment, and be really intuitive, like almost like a child, just looking and what's beautiful to look at and what's interesting. And then editing for me is like a very different thing. It's weird. Like intuition's part of it, but then there's a lot of analysis, I feel like, that goes into it also. So
yeah, and it's just really important that you realize that there's never going to be one answer to your questions. You know, when people say, how do you approach strangers on the street? Everybody has a different way. I just play dumb usually. You know, I'm just like, oh, I'm a photography student. You know, other people might do something completely different. You know, it's really, you have to find your own ways. But, you know, by talking to other people, by working super hard, having mentors and all that, it's a little shortcut to finding your own way. But we're not going to tell you exactly how to do things. You know, if you expect that, it's not for you. We're going to help you find your own answers.
Could I jump in? Maybe a few questions that are kind of around the criteria of the type of projects that you guys would be interested in. And just as we have a few different examples. So we have somebody that has a concept and has some examples of kind of previous work. Would they be considered? We have a filmmaker, and we have somebody with a 7-year project, and they really want to kind of edit that down to a book. How does that work maybe for the 3 people from your side?
Well, Alessandra is also a filmmaker, you guys may or may not know. and I love film. I mean, my instinct, Alessandra, is that that would totally be okay, but I guess we should probably talk about this more. We're just talking about this on right now. So.
No, I film, but I wouldn't say I'm a filmmaker. You know, I'm learning to do film.
She's modest.
So I would not say that I can. No, I mean, I can't teach filmmaking, or I actually need that for myself. You know, I need help learning how to edit video. I'm working on a project, and just got funding from Sundance to do it. And that money is basically going to go to a professional editor that I'm going to work with collaboratively. You know, not somebody that I'm going to tell what to do, but somebody we're going to sort of work together. But so I'm not sure we should think about that. I'm not sure about
Okay.
filmmaking.
Could I make a suggestion? Perhaps with someone who's working in film but needing direction on the narrative arc of the work, maybe that's where the mentorship could be helpful.
Yeah. And what was the other question?
For somebody with a concept, but maybe with only, you know, examples of previous work, but they have a concept that they would like to work on for a long-term project, and then somebody with a 7-year project.
Yeah, somebody that has an idea for a new project that can show us something they've done in the past, for sure. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
But we just need to see what they have done.
Yep, I agree.
This conversation's great. Thanks for all the insight. There was one more question just about process. And the question is, how does everyone deal with the fatigue of long-term projects, becoming too familiar with it over and over? This is where I'm at.
I guess I have the longest term project. Like this, exactly like this, I deal with it. You know, with the adventures that I've been doing since 1998, I went through excitement, obsessiveness. Then I needed just to take a break. I couldn't stand to talk about it anymore, think about it anymore. And I've done work all along, other work all along, you know, or take a break and just dedicate myself to something else. There's no formula for it, but the only thing I would say is to just not give up. You know, you can get tired of it, you take a break. If you get tired of it, maybe it means you need to take a different approach to it. Maybe you're repeating yourself. That's what's really common to start. I've gone through that a lot, where I keep repeating the same successful pictures over and over again. And that's when I say, no, you know, and that's when I actually question if I want to be a photographer, when I went through those phases, because I'm like, I already know how to take a pretty picture. I don't want to be doing the same pictures again. You know, so I immerse myself in something else and come back to it.
Yeah, this is another one that I feel like, Alessandra, we could spend a whole hour just talking about, that is super worthwhile and interesting. I mean, I remember one time, I think, Alessandra, we were talking about this and something totally unrelated about staging, like in our work. And that I think we talked about this, that being in a place where you start to get bored, like being there long enough where you start to get bored, can be important, because then the boredom forces you to say, what, I need to shake this up. What do I do here? I need to rethink what I'm doing. And that sometimes pushing past that point of being like, what do I do here, is somehow where the creativity can come from. But I think, you know, it depends on your project. And I think it's the kind of thing that Alessandra and I would, personally, I'd say it'd be nice to look at the work, see what you're doing. And I think we could throw ideas at you. I mean, off the top of my head, there are all kinds of things that I'll do to change things up, where if I'm driving too much, I'll say, I have to get out of the car. I have to walk today. Or I can't go home until I've approached 10 strangers.
Yeah,
Whether
I
it's a
do
yes
that.
or no, I have to approach 10. Even though I feel like the days, I'm repeating myself for the days, or I'll say I have to switch my camera or I switch my lens, which sounds dumb, but it really does force you to see a little bit differently. Other things I'll do, when I'm driving around exploring, I'll often notice that I intuitively go left at a certain intersection. I'll force myself to go right. Or I'll set a timer and I'll say, okay, when the timer goes off, I have to stop the car and get out. Even if the neighborhood looks boring or not a place that I want to be, I'm stopping the car at 5 minutes and I'm going to get out and walk. And I shoot for 10 minutes. And I edited this book called The Photographer's Playbook with Jason Fulford. And the whole book is about like play and about sort of forcing yourself out of like patterns and just rethinking. And so I feel like I've got some tricks up my sleeve that I would maybe that I would be more than happy to sort of share and try to help you, rethink sort of like if you feel stuck or bored or like that's something that I've thought a lot about and how to deal with. Not that I know the answer, but I can try to help you be creative about what might help.
And Greg, maybe that helps to answer this question for both of you. What did you change about your work process to incorporate the poetry you spoke of earlier? Maybe that had something to do with it, right? Pushing yourself out of your comfort zone or changing things up.
Yeah. I'd be curious can you articulate what changed for you after that meeting, or is it hard to put into words?
Kind of hard, but it was also a very long time ago. That was like 1992. But work, I never let any negative or constructive criticism bring me down or question myself. It would always make me work harder. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but that's the way it was for me before. I think a certain dose of arrogance, at least in the beginning, is super healthy. So when I was told that my work didn't have poetry, I didn't agree. It's not that I said, oh, she's right. I said she's wrong. And I just worked even harder to prove it wrong. And she ended up buying work of mine later on, so I proved it wrong. But, but I know it's a boring answer, but it's just to work even harder. Work harder and work. It's work. You know that Andy Warhol song that Lou Reed wrote with, I think, John Cale? I don't remember. And there's a song where they sing about Andy Warhol's mentorship. And they say Andy just says work, work, work. Where it's all about that. And during the 90s, that song was my mantra, just to remind myself, that it's not about inspiration coming from the sky. It doesn't come. It only comes through work and being uncomfortable.
I love that.
Jim chimed in, Songs for Drella is Warhol album.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim.
Oh, Jim is here.
Okay, I think I'm just conscious of time. Do we want, before we oh, actually, no, we've got until the top of the hour. What am I saying? We've got 10 minutes still. Perfect, plenty of time.
I can stay a little later too, if it's useful. I mean, this seems important. There's a lot of great questions.
Definitely.
And I'm trying to respond. It's hard to talk and respond, but I'm trying, so.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, just to mention to everybody, if we don't get to your question, please do drop us an email and we will get back to you. Lots of great questions. And as we said, we will cover some nuts and bolts after we let you guys go. And then we have all of our rest of our program to run through quickly as well. So maybe we could take a couple more good questions.
Greg and Alessandra, could you quickly touch on some of your mentors along the way? If there's any stories you'd like to share with the group about the influence of mentors on your own path?
Yeah, I can start.
Start?
So yeah, so since Jim just chimed in, I don't know if Jim, but so 20 years ago, I went to graduate school at California College of the Arts, and I met Jim Goldberg. And I went to school in large part to learn from Jim Goldberg and Larry Sultan, who was there. And that for me, it wasn't, again, it wasn't necessarily about California College of the Arts. It was about learning from Jim and Larry and the way that they work with books primarily, because I knew that was sort of what I wanted to do. And I just absolutely loved their books. They were my two favorite photographic bookmakers. And Jim was really tough on me at first. And it was good because I feel like I wanted to impress Jim, and I worked hard, and I still hear Jim's voice, damn it, sometimes. I remember him telling me, when it's really cold out, when you don't want to go work. So I was going back to Buffalo to photograph. It was winter and it was dark. And he said, that's when you need to force yourself to get up and go. Damn, I still hear that voice when I don't feel like shooting. But among the many other things that I've learned from Jim, Jim has since become a friend, but is still a mentor to me in many ways, and is also responsible for having brought me into Magnum. And so it's really kind of an amazing relationship that I just feel like immensely grateful to have had. And obviously we can't promise you that these relationships will become like that, but that was the kind of meeting and friendship and relationship that's completely changed the course of my life for the better. So if you are still listening, Jim, thank you.
Mentors, I just feel that so many people have influenced me and guided me in very different ways. But I would say, I was lucky enough in my 20s. My partner at the time was and is also a photographer. So we learned a lot from each other, and we would edit each other's work. That was a very fortunate situation. We would assist each other. And I think that was my main, I don't know if I can call it mentorship, but that was my main learning experience in the 90s while I was working first on the 6th day and then on the adventures. I remember with the adventures, there was one point, when Guillermina and Belinda got older, and I would go see them and they would just sit there like lumps. The play wasn't there. It just felt bad. I didn't know what to do. So I thought, okay, I'm done. I have a really nice first book. I'm finished. But, my partner then just said, no, it's not finished. And I remember in one instance, he basically forced me into our car and dropped me off at Belinda's house and said, just go work. And I remember him saying, this is when it's going to get interesting. So that kind of relationship was really important. Then I had a teacher at ICP, Robert Blake. I did a 1-year program at ICP in 1991, I think it was. And he's brilliant. And he was also a big influence on just taking away all the bullshit, just like he would always go right to the core of things. And I learned a lot from him as well. And now, of course, I live with Jim. So I think we both learn a lot from each other. There's so much that I picked up from him. and I know that it's the same for him. So it's, you know, that's a pretty privileged situation, because I'm like, we live together and we show each other work all the time and discuss it. And, you know, I can just call him into my studio to help me decide what color should the cover be, right? But lacking that, you know, I really need other eyes on my work. You know, I know there's people that can work more, make decisions on their own more. I don't know those people, but I really need to have like kindred spirits that I can turn to, you know, that can maybe see things in my work that I still can't see, you know, that know me well enough, or to see things that are going on in the work before I can identify them.
I would just jump in on that and say that's my favorite part of my job, is the fact that we're connecting photographers with each other, and we see the relationships that they develop over years and how they're supporting each other. And as much as we would all love to, you know, be able to keep giving feedback, it really is those, you know, your personal networks and the friends that you make through these things. And it's really lovely to see years, you know, things developing over years.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Shannon.
One more question.
Yeah, we've got so many great questions coming in now. There's a question for Greg from Pedro. You've talked about intuition. What do you think helps sharpen your intuition when you're out working?
That's a great question. I was trying to, first I was thinking, I don't know how to answer that, but then I realized it's like, for me, it's this, like, I think of it as a feedback loop between the shooting and the editing, where they kind of inform each other. But like, so I'll shoot, it'll be intuitive. I try not to plan or analyze or judge myself, you know, before I click the shutter. I try not to think like, this is a terrible idea. You know, this film is costing me too much, but I try to always like shut the critical voice out and just experience. And then when I'm editing, I'll see my mistakes. Often that's like a lot of what I see is mistakes or ideas that weren't good. And then hopefully there'll be a gem or two in there. And then when I go out to shoot, I feel like what I learned from the editing process kind of informs my intuition. And sometimes it's really clear, like how it informed me. It'll be like, okay, you know, the next time I take a portrait of someone I meet on the street, don't forget to, you know, it could be something stupid, like don't forget to, you know, think about, you know, how the light is hitting if they have text on their shirt and it's distracted, something stupid like that. It's like a simple mistake I might have made. But sometimes it's like, I'll just notice that, okay, I'm avoiding people because I'm out wandering and I'm taking too many landscapes, and it's actually a way of avoiding the photographing people, because that's actually much harder and scarier. So I'll force myself to then do something different and approach more people. Or, you know, sometimes you can't even fully understand how it influences your shooting. But I think, like, you know, everything you read and everything you look at influences your your rational mind, and then the shooting, your irrational kind of intuitive mind is informed by all that stuff you take in, your input, your films you watched or whatnot. And then, so I think, and then they inform each other that way, which I feel like that's a really vague answer, but that's the best answer I could think up on the spot. Maybe Alessandra, you have a better answer for that.
What was the question again?
Like, how do you make your intuition sharper when you're shooting? Was that it?
Yeah, what do you think helps sharpen your intuition when you're out working?
I don't think I can answer that. I admire Greg for being able to answer it, but because it is intuition, I'm not thinking about it, right? That's the definition of like intuition. It's like a sixth sense or something. So I don't have, you know, that's just a spark, something, a confluence of things, you know, that just happen, and there it is. but I I can't, I don't sharpen my intuition, you know. Well, one thing, I mean, I don't know if this is, you know, directly to the question, but when I remember for a long period while I was shooting in the countryside, when I would go to somebody's house, you know, the drives are really long because everybody lives very far apart. I would, to set my mind in place, to forget all like the banalities I was thinking about before going, and I still do that. I would listen. At that time, I was like really into T.S. Eliot. So I would just put a cassette of him reciting The Wasteland. And I would just listen to that as I drove to wherever I was going to be shooting, just to get in that space. And also this Argentine folklore singer, Atahualpa Yupanqui, you know, I would listen to him also. And it would, what I read the night before shooting would also influence what I did afterwards, you know. And what I read has nothing to do with, well, now for Black River maybe, but at that time, you know, I was really into Graham Greene. And I remember I was reading The Power and the Glory one summer where I did a lot of work. And, you know, it has nothing to do with my work, what Graham Greene is writing about there, but somehow it really informed it. I don't know. It just made me, I don't know the connection, but I think being immersed in rich, wonderful work of other people, not photographic work, because when I'm in the middle of shooting, the last thing I want to do is look at other people's photographs. You know, I try to immerse myself like in really good films, poetry, literature, you know, and you just get into this, or I get into just this wonderful space where I remember what's important and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I also feel less alone, you know, because that's what reading, music, and all that makes you feel, less alone, like you have friends from other centuries, you know, and that you're connecting to this. And that helps me. I don't do it for it, but that's when I get in this kind of magical or otherworldly kind of space. And yeah.
I love that answer. And you know, one other thing that we could do potentially, and again, we're going to see who winds up in the workshop and get to know you guys, but we may realize, hey, it would be worthwhile if we all, you know, watch this film or read this short story, and you know, and see how we react, because I think that's really interesting, Alessandra, to hear your answer. I love that idea of you listening to The Wasteland. That's fascinating. When I was editing the first early version of this book, I obsessively listened to this one Tom Waits song called Long Way Home. I just put it on repeat. It was like all night. It was this crazy editing session. It was and for some reason, the feeling of that book, of that song, was just what I needed. And then you know, it was just one night, but it kind of helped me think of the first project, the first seed of the project. I don't even know how that happened, but
Oh, now I just want to go out and work.
yeah.
Let you go. I love that.
No, I didn't mean to end here. No, I mean, when I start remembering and talking about it, I just want to start making work again.
Good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you've definitely sparked a lot of thoughts for our audience members. There's some great feedback in the chat.
Yeah, I love all these questions. I feel bad that we can't answer all of them. I'm trying to type stuff in, but I think these are like complicated questions that are hard. They deserve proper time. It's just hard to answer them all.
And I think also, just to note, hopefully there will be other opportunities, even if you don't end up on the long-term mentorship. We're launching an online lecture series. You know, Zoom has changed everything. We hope that we can connect you guys with the community, you know, more and more. But clearly it sounds like a really incredibly special program. So yeah, just as a reminder, if there's any key questions that we haven't answered, do reach out to Amber, but we'll just quickly run through some of the nuts and bolts questions. But unless there's anything else, maybe we can let you guys go.
Yeah,
Any final thoughts?
we covered it.
Yeah, thank you, Alessandra. Thank you, Greg. That was really
Thank you.
Of course, yeah.
I look forward to working with you both.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm super excited. If people have more questions for us that we could somehow potentially answer over email, you know, I'm totally happy to try. But
they can write to me and I can field it. Yeah.
Cool.
Great.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.
So
great.
Okay, thank you so much. And hello to Sonia.
Hi, Sonia.
Welcome. So as we were explaining, Sonia is the education manager based in London. So now we're going to quickly run through some of the rest of the, oh, actually, no, before we do that, let's just try and quickly cover some of the nuts and bolts questions for people.
Sounds good.
So one question, I've been taking notes. One question was, if the person was lucky enough to win the scholarship, is it the same as the paid for version? And yes, it absolutely would be the same program.
Yeah.
Scholarship details are on the website. We're going to walk you through the website in a minute and we can show you, make sure that you're able to find some of that information. That will have the full schedule. But anything, Amber, you want to add on that?
Yeah, so it will have the full schedule for the first workshop is spread out over 5 days. We're conscious that everyone can't dedicate an entire week to being in a workshop. So we've spread out the 5-day workshop. And within those 5 days, you'll hear different lectures from Greg and Alessandra sharing work. You'll hear from Christina DeMiddle, Michael Mack, and then Alex Soth will join on one day to have a conversation with Greg and Alessandra. And we will have some more surprise guest lecturers depending on the applicants and where your work is going. So we really want to tailor the program for you. So those additional guest experts will be announced later on. Then the individual 1-hour sessions with Greg and Alessandra will start in March. They'll go through March, April, May, and June. And then we'll conclude with another 5-day workshop spread out. And that workshop will include a pitching panel. So a pitching panel is an opportunity for you to pitch your project or maybe projects, if you have multiple, within a certain time frame. And I'll be creating a structure around that. And you'll be pitching your work to a panel of experts that will include book publishers, curators, photo editors. And those experts will be announced later on as well, since we really want to tailor it to the specific group. I think I covered, oh, I forgot to mention the 2 additional group check-in days. Those are 2 workshop days that will take place in between March and July.
Great. And just as another question was the time zone that we're working in, just for people to think about that.
So Greg is based in New York and Alessandra is in California. I'm currently in New Mexico. And so we'll be conscious of the fact that Alessandra is 3 hours behind Greg. So we're going to balance that and probably start the workshop days around 11 a.m. Eastern time, which would be 8 a.m. Pacific time. And then if someone were in the UK, anybody do the math? Evening. Yes, it would be evening time. So kind of, yeah. Great. Anything else on schedule, structure? Just to say again, there's more detail on the website, which we will take you through in a minute. Somebody had a really good question, which was, you know,
leading on to potentially wanting to follow up this mentorship with trying to do an MFA or something, and would we be able to offer a letter of recommendation? And I'm pretty sure that would not be a problem.
Yeah, I did see that question, Shannon. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, I think that will be fine. I'm a professor as well. I teach at the School of Visual Arts, and so I understand the importance of those recommendation letters. So I think that that is something we can discuss, and it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, and just to say also, just following up, one of the discussion points was clearly everybody's kind of at different stages, and that's exactly what this session is for, to kind of try and help you understand. Maybe there will be other opportunities that might be better for the level that you're at. But I also think, we really see a lot people coming together at different levels, and the amazing things that come out of that experience. You could have, you could just be starting out, but have amazing ideas, amazing work. You could have a 7-year project, and that will be the interesting mix, I think, that happens. Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think everyone can get something from the other's work process, creative process. You heard Alessandra talk about the influence of film and poetry on her work. And so we are very keen to tap into the other art forms, not just photography, but how can other art forms influence your creative process? Yeah. And yesterday we discussed the fact that I might do a professional development lecture in the first workshop to kind of take notice of how photographers are breaking into the industry now, especially during the pandemic. So keeping it very relevant to this time that we're in.
Perfect. Okay, anything else, Amber, before we...
I think we covered it all. The scholarship information is on the webpage. If you just scroll down to the bottom, you have to scroll through it. We'll keep updating that page with the guest experts. And if you have any other questions, feel free to contact me, and I will do my best to get back to you in a timely manner.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you mind sharing your screen? Would that be okay with the website? Thank you. Okay, so I wanted to kind of kick off, and I thought this might be a good idea to help you guys navigate when you come to the Magnum website, how to find the programs that we're working on. And Bai has done a lot of work trying to make this fantastic overview page to make that easier for you to find all of the different ways that you can work with us. So I might start with the on-demand courses. And maybe the best way to show that, I'm not sure what the sound would be like, but if we could maybe just show the trailer. So this is a video on demand course. We have two. We have the art of street photography. We have Alex Soth, photographic storytelling. And this is hot off the press. This is like a preview for you guys, that the next photographer will be Bika DePorter. And we just saw a preview of the trailer today, and it looks incredible. So let's see if that works, if the sound's okay.
I don't have the keys to photography. There aren't specific answers to lots of the big questions. Well, it was in my childhood days. Oh, many long years ago. Praise my God, I hear them still in that little, that one church house out on a hill.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, so hopefully you guys have seen that. Hopefully some of you have taken the course, and we are really excited to have Bika as the next photographer, and that will hopefully be launching before Christmas. Hopefully we'll be able to get that for you guys. And just to let you know, in case you're still looking for Christmas presents, you can gift those courses, and they're really affordable, $99. And then if you want to go back by, and then we can keep scrolling through. And just to say, actually, I'll come to the free opportunities at the end, but we've talked about the long-term mentorship. Do you want to say anything else? Maybe we could just click into that, make sure people know where that is.
Let's see. Anything else about that? Well, there were a lot of questions about
the scholarship application, actually.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. We're not on the page anymore. But again, if you scroll to the bottom of the long-term mentorship page, you'll see the scholarship application form. And thanks again for all of your questions.
I am just figuring it out. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I think we had an update of that this afternoon. I think the link's gone. But anyway, you can see where that is. And then this is another view where we have all of our latest workshops. Yeah. Okay, we can move on. Sonia, welcome again. And I was just saying that you were just wrapping up 2 programs today, crazy day. So congratulations and thank you for joining. Do you want to talk us through Jean Gomi? Maybe not so relevant.
Like we have a French speaker in here who would like to know about. So I mean, maybe it's not. Jean Gomi is a workshop that I'm going to lead with the French photographer Jean Gomi, but it will be on in French. So if there are any French speaker on this call, you feel free to email me my contact details. I can put them on the chat, but and then I can answer. I also speak French. I'm French. So
and
that's maybe that one.
Yeah. And I was just going to say that is something that we're trying to do more of. French language. Some of the photographers speak Spanish, so that's something that we're looking at offering more of. Great, thank you, Sonia. Do you want to talk about the professional practice?
Yes, so the professional practice is a series that is, we've just had the first one about editorial photography, and it's basically something that we've done for a long time at Magnum. There used to be weekend workshops, and now they are taking place over 2 weekends. And each of these weekends kind of explore an aspect of being a professional photographer. So it's less about your practice and it's going to be more about the industry. The first one was about editorial photography, and we invited photo editors working for Geo Magazine, How to Spend It. There was the Calvert Journal, which is an online publication. And so it's a mix of industry people telling you how they work with photographers, and a day spent with a Magnum photographer. And then you have portfolio reviews on the following weekend, and some sort of like at the same time as you have portfolio reviews, you also have time with me, where it's kind of like surgery session where we do everything from looking at your website, rewriting your bio, working on your pitch for some people, giving you feedback on your invoicing, copyrights, contracts, and we also talked a lot about ethics last time. So it's very informal. Some people stayed for the 7 hours on the call, and then others just stayed for like half an hour. And then, so the next professional practice weekend is going to be in January, the last 2 weekends of January, and it's about bookmaking. And then we will have another, and it's led with Rafał Milak, the Polish photographer. And then we'll have one in March with Sabiha Chimen, and this one is going to be on personal project. So really like if anyone has, I don't know, question about funding, but also really working with curators and people that can help you develop your work. Who are these people and what's their role in the industry really? And finally, the last one of the series will be in March, April, and it will be a commercial photography, which this one is still being kind of worked on. So this is the idea. So if and there is a final one, which is just over 2 days, and this one is really, I call it the boring workshop, but I know it's not boring, but it's just all of these things that you never want to do as a photographer, which getting your right accountant, sorting out your VAT, getting what's the best deal for your website, how do you manage your archive and actually find things and make sure that they can become your legacy as opposed to a mess. All of these things, no? So this is the professional practice series.
All of the super important things for sure. I'm just looking at some questions. So the bookmaking course will be in English.
So all of these workshops, everything is in English. And then obviously, if I don't know, if you polish, then you can have for the speakers, for the bookmaking, we have Editorial RM, which are a very big Spanish book publisher, so they will be speaking Spanish, so they can also give reviews in Spanish. And then Rafael speaks Polish, but Rafael will not be doing review. It will be always in a group setting with him, so it would be difficult to have that possibility to speak Polish.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. Just something that, as you were talking there about talking about ethics, it reminded me that somebody had a question whether ethics would be covered in the long-term mentorship. I think that's the beauty of the long-term mentorship program, that there are sessions, individual sessions, where even if it's not covered in the group, if you have particular needs, then or questions, that's your time to kind of work with the photographers on that.
Yeah, and Shannon, Greg, Alessandra, and I actually discussed maybe getting someone in to talk about that topic, another Magnum photographer. So again, we're waiting to see what kind of applicants we get and how we can create the best program for everyone. Yeah.
Okay, which leads nicely into the individual mentorships. And maybe I'm jumping all over the place, but I've got a little bit of a structure for it. And somebody had a question, clearly at Magnum, we're really conscious of trying to offer things for everybody's budget. And someone was saying, I really would like mentorship, but I don't think I can pay that amount. So this is another option that's available. Amber, do you want to talk about that?
So sure, for this mentorship program, you would sign up to have one mentor. Right now we have Matt Black, Peter Van Oxmel, and Carolyn Drake as mentors, and stay tuned because there will be more mentors added to this page. And it includes 8 one-hour sessions over the course of 3 to 6 months. It really depends on your schedule and needs and the Magnum photographer's schedule. And it's an application process as well. The deadline that we have up, I believe, is January 2nd. And then after that, we will keep accepting applications on a rolling basis. If anyone has any questions about the mentorship in particular, you can put them in the Q&A or the chat. I'm actually looking at both.
Yeah, definitely do keep putting your questions in there.
I just want to answer, maybe someone asked if we have program for beginner photographers, Ahmed, and I don't know how beginners you mean, but we don't have programs that are going to teach you how to use your camera. That's basically the only thing that we don't do. But then when it comes in, like, we have programs where people come and they've never really experienced using a camera, but then what we do is more helping them think what they can do with photography from a creative point of view. And then the camera becomes kind of a second thing. So yeah, I hope that answered. There's no, we don't do technical things too much.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's kind of odd that we don't, but there is the expectation that you know how to find your way around a camera, and everyone's kind of focused on storytelling more so. Great. Shall we move on to Sonia? Anything you wanted to say on Speos?
So Speos is the one-year course that takes place in Paris. This one is not online. So it will start in September 2021, and it's a full year course that at the end will give you a diploma equivalent. So it's a university diploma type. It's a partnership with the School of Photography based in Paris called Speos. And it is basically, the program is mainly run by Speos with inputs, more than inputs, but where you basically spend 2 days a week at Magnum, being mentored by various Magnum photographers that come every week to teach you about photography and also look at your work. And you have a dedicated mentor that follows your program throughout the year. And then at the end of this year, you have to present a project in order to validate your diploma. And there is an exhibition in Arles, the photo festival that happens in the south of France, and an exhibition at the Magnum office as well, and in Paris. So this is this year's course was cancelled because of COVID, and we've now starting to take application again for the 2021, September 2021.
The exhibition in Arles sounds amazing.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And exactly that. If anyone fancies a year in Paris, then it's pretty.
Yes, exactly. So Speos, the school, that's a good point. And the school Speos also helps in everything that is relating to getting visa to spend a year in France and all of that. So they have I don't know, the administrative support to help you in that.
Great. Okay, so Creativity Works, you've just come out of the amazing showcase. Sonia, anything you want to say on that one?
Maybe, I mean, I can put the link to the virtual gallery on the chat. This is a program we do every year for young Londoners. So it's just to give you a breadth of the different type of things we do in education. But this Creativity Works is a yearly program we do for young Londoners, and that's 6 weeks. And at the end they have a show. This year it's a virtual show. You can see it through the link I have just shared. And the requirements, it's a program that is funded by the Mayor's Funds for London. So the requirement is that all young people needs to be young, that is 18 to 24 and from London. And then we try to give them the tools to understand and navigate the creative industries, and also make connection and network for them in London, so that they somehow can start in a better position than if they didn't have any. It's been super successful, very fun as well. So if you want to see the world through the eyes of young Londoners, this is the link you can follow under COVID and during a second lockdown as well.
Incredibly inspiring. And I'm not sure if you mentioned, but that's a free program that we offer.
Yes.
And rolling every year. So if anybody is in London and if that sounds like you, then we'd love to there will be links on the website for you to be able to apply for that for next year. Amazing. Amber, do you want to say a few words on the portfolio review?
Sure. Let's see, we have our next portfolio review is coming up January 18th through the 23rd. So it's right around the corner. We do have a cap on the amount of applicants we can receive, so check those out on our website. Thanks, Bai, for navigating to the page. So you can see a little bit about it here. We've got a great lineup if you could keep scrolling down. So Alessandra will be a portfolio reviewer, Rafal, Jonas, Nikos, and Jim Goldberg. And basically it's a 1 hour session like this on Zoom. And usually someone from the staff is available to get you started, to check in. And you can talk about editing, feedback. If you have a certain number of images and you'd like them to pick their favorites, you can ask them about professional development. If one of the staff members is also in the session, you can ask us questions about professional development. It's a really great opportunity to have an intimate conversation with the Magnum photographer, and to maximize the time, just go in prepared, knowing exactly what you'd like to ask of them and what the important points are for moving your work forward. Shannon and I usually do a lecture preparing everyone for the reviews. So we will have updates on when that will be scheduled after you sign up.
Wonderful. And then rattling through this because we've got so much to cover and we're going a little bit over time, but hopefully people can bear with us because we're getting to some really exciting stuff still. Amber, do you want to say a few words about the grant writing seminar and plans for the next one?
Well, I can say that the most recent grant writing seminar with Holly Hughes, who was the editor-in-chief of Photo District News for quite some time, she knocked it out of the ballpark. We had a great seminar, and so we're planning a part 2 to that. I don't have too many details on that just yet, but if there are specific topics that you'd like to know more about, let us know, because we can really tailor things for your needs. I think that's about as much as I can say right now. It will have something to do with community engagement and impact plans for grant writing.
Yeah, fantastic. And so that's clearly, you know, was such an amazing chance to hear from Magnum photographers about how they're approaching, you know, writing grants and funding their personal projects, and then to hear from funders about the nuts and the bolts of it from their side. So that's something we're really excited about doing more of on topics like that. So that's coming up. And then I would say similar kind of thing, and similar to this sort of event, again, you know, one of the positives that has come out of COVID for us is where, well, sadly, we're always on Zoom, but it has been this incredible opportunity to connect with each other within Magnum, the photographers, the staff, but then also to connect with you guys, to connect with the community. So we're really thinking, you know, we have always done lecture series with different partners, but now we're really thinking about next year, taking all of our, not, I mean, hopefully we'll still be doing real world activity ASAP, but coming up with a program of online events that will run throughout next year. And the idea is, like this conversation, to give you access to those sorts of conversations that the photographers are having with each other, conversations that the staff are having, that industry, you know, experts are having, across all of the topics that everybody needs to be thinking about in photography today. So we're excited about that. We will be launching that shortly in the coming days. And then I would just finish with, I think, the free opportunities, which is a section on the website. It's right at the top, but it's also at the bottom. And we're extremely proud that over the past 5 years, we've provided free educational opportunities for over 1,200 emerging photographers across kind of different formats. And yeah, coming back to that point, we're really conscious of, you know, the fact that people's budgets, it's a tough time. We're conscious of that. So we're trying to find ways to offer more and more free activity. We have scholarships across the program, and we're just trying to find ways that we can offer more of those. Our team is providing free portfolio reviews. There's specific criteria sometimes on different events. And so, yeah, so please just have a look at the website, see if you're eligible, and hopefully we get to, that's one way that we can also get to, you know, meet you and give you feedback on your work, and bring you into that program. So maybe we could take if there's any other questions before we wrap it up. Anything anybody can think of we haven't covered? Bai, anything you want to add?
I just want to add that our latest current free opportunities is emerging writers in residence I'm currently working on. You can go to the free opportunities page and check it out. This is not particularly a photography course, but we are seeking out for photography writers who are looking to explore the Magnum archive and write a editorial piece for our website, understanding and bringing out different voices that are usually left out of the archive and within photography, and understanding the context of representation. And we are just trying to diversify our ways of seeing photographs.
Very cool.
Okay, I'm just having a quick look. Thank you, Bai. I'm just having a quick look at any questions. Yeah, so thank you for bearing with us on our first open day. That was, I love this. So do, you know, let us know any feedback. Always, please, you know, get in contact. And as we were saying, if you have any other questions on the programs, if you have any feedback on things that you think we should be thinking about, things that are going to be really useful for you. And I would suggest the best way to stay up to date is just to make sure you're following at Magnum Photos, at Magnum Learn. Bai has taken over the Magnum Learn channel, and there's so much fantastic, you know, content on there to help you as well. So, and we can stay in touch. And yeah, any final thoughts, guys? And wrap it up.
Thank you so much for joining. I think we should do this more often.
Thank you so much from me as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was great. It's really nice to hear from our audience.
Great. Thank you, guys. I hope you're all well and hope to see some of you soon. And thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good night. Good night.